So we will be starting off today in short meditation and some breath work. So if you want to use a meditation cushion or even just find a comfortable seat on your mat, we will be here for some minutes. If you prefer to be in an upright chair for a meditation, we do want to stay upright so that we can get our presence into the moment and really get into our bodies today. So thank you for joining me on Set Ways Yoga and Mindful Movement. I'm glad you're a part of this today. It's a great class for recovery day from your workouts, from training, from daily grind, all of the intensities that we have in our daily schedule in life. So, once again, just find yourself in a comfortable position. We're going to want a way that we can root down our hips into the ground or into the seat. And as a rebounding energy, we want to bring that up a straight spine, letting energy expand out of the top, the crown of our head towards the sky. You don't need to have your hands in any sort of a mudra position or any sort of prayer, but just relax them on your thighs. And let's take a moment. You're welcome to close your eyes or just keep a soft gaze. We're just going to start by trying to find our own breath, finding where we're at today. So go ahead and again, soften your gaze or maybe close your eyes, whatever you feel comfortable with. And just start to notice, maybe you do need to take a couple of nice deep breaths to slow yourself down. Or you might notice that you're breathing kind of shallowly or just in a fast manner. So let's take a moment to just help ourselves slow down, find the present moment. We're in a safe space. And we're here to help our bodies relax and unwind the tensions, release any built up strain and stress. Again, rooting down through the ground with your hips, raising up with a straight spine on every inhale, rooting down, and every exhale, allowing that to release upwards through your spine out into the air. And some days you may notice it's particularly hard to slow down. So if you're finding that your mind still wants to race and you're thinking, how am I going to get into this class? I'm here and I want to enjoy it. We have some more tools within our breath work. So there is something called box breathing or square breathing that you may have heard of before. It's a very simple process. So what we'll do, we can do this together for a few rounds and then at our own pace. You inhale for the count of 4, 2, 3, 4. You'll hold your breath at the top. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Holding at the bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's do that again together. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold at the top. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, and hold at the bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is a very great tool for helping the body to release tension and to find the present moment and to just gain a more relaxed, even pace. So either continue with the square breathing or find your own pace of breath. And let's take a few more minutes to just center ourselves, find ourselves in the moment. Maybe one more round if you're in the square breathing, or a few more breaths. Excellent. Slowly blink your eyes open. And now that we've tapped into our nervous system and helping us ourselves relax, let's get into some intuitive movements. Sorry. So we'll get most of our props out of the way, but keep them within reach. You may want to have a strap within reach. We're going to be lowering to the floor next and getting into happy baby position. So if you're familiar with that. But first we'll do some intuitive movement. So find what you need today to start loosening up. You may want to take your knees in some opposing circles, help loosen up your hips, or bringing your knees together. You could do circles in either direction to help massage out the sacrum, or maybe straighten the legs, bend the legs, rocking back and forth or side to side. Any movements that you find are speaking to you today to help start to relax your body a little bit into the moment, pursue those. And we'll do this just for a couple minutes. All right, and when you found your stillness coming to the center, again, you could take your strap and place it over the soles of the feet. We're going to be bringing our knees into our armpit kind of area. So you're welcome to hold the strap in that way to secure your legs there, or give a light pull on the hamstring area of your legs. Or you could grasp onto the feet or ankles as is comfortable. Another thing I like to do is kind of wrap my arms around and grab my ankles. And this gives a nice little help to gravity to pull my thighs down towards the earth. So whatever feels comfortable for you today in terms of um, getting into the pose, just find yourself there and find your stillness. Soften your gaze and return to your breath. Through any of our poses today, you're welcome to start the square breathing again. If you find your mind racing, can always help access the nervous system to relax in that way. Or just find your breath. Occasionally, you may find that your body wants to take a nice deep breath and sigh a big amount out, and that's good too. That means you're accessing that secondary nervous system response. So we're taking ourselves out of fight or flight and into the rest and digest. And that's great because that means our body is entering into the healing mode. And that is a good thing. So again, I'll try to give us some silence here to enjoy the moment and find ourselves in our own bodies. Be aware of any tensions that tend to creep back in if you start to feel tension returning to your face or your jaw or your neck. Continual scanning through the body with every pose is a great way to find those areas where your stress likes to accumulate or just tension. We're always trying to be ready for something. But this is our chance to allow ourselves to feel safe and in a space where we can let go. And that allows our body the recovery that we need so that we can pursue and be ready for all of the actions that we wish to do in our days. Let's just take a couple more breaths here. And when you're ready, maybe just unwind with going back to some of those intuitive movements just for a brief moment. And find yourself in a nice long extended position, reaching your arms up above your head, stretching out those legs and toes. Nice long stretch. Maybe give a little wiggle to your body. And relax in their extended position here. We'll be moving into banana pose. So this will give us a nice stretch on our side bodies. So we will start by walking our feet over towards the right corner of our mat, the lower right corner. Only go so far as to the point where you can still keep both hips on the ground. So you are welcome to keep your ankles side by side or cross that left ankle over the right, whichever feels better for you to continue that stretch. But again, keeping both hips on the ground. Once you're settled there, go ahead and walk your hands to the upper right corner of the mat and adjusting your shoulders as needed. Again, you want both shoulders as points of contact on the mat. So only going so far as you can maintain that. And then you could have clasped hands or clasp at the elbows if that helps maintain the position in a comfortable way. Whatever is best for you to feel that nice long stretch along your entire side body. Again, soften your gaze, close your eyes if you like, and return to your breath. Finding ways to let those ribs expand on the side with every breath and contract as you expel the air out. And don't worry or feel like anything is wrong if your thoughts keep trying to return. We can never get rid of our thoughts. We are human. They keep happening, and that's a good thing. But we do want to give ourselves a rest from having to problem solve and doing all these things. So that's why sometimes the focus of the square breathing, the counting can help us really get into the breath a little more. Or just really focusing on our inhales and exhales. Trying to give ourselves a little mini vacation from the thoughts. And when you're ready, we'll slowly crawl our hands back to the center and then our legs. Give your body a little wiggle there. And then we'll pursue the same stretch on the other side. So walking your feet towards the left lower edge of your mat, again, making sure that right butt cheek stays onto the mat. And cross your ankles if you'd like, or keep your ankles side by side. And then slowly adjust your upper body towards that upper left corner of the mat, clasping your hands at the wrist or grabbing at the elbows, whatever's most comfortable for you. And enjoy that nice long extension along the right side body. Once again, find your breath, letting those ribs expand out to the right, giving them plenty of room to be. Releasing the tension that we've built up by carrying things around or bracing ourselves in preparation for any of our activities. And when you're ready, slowly recenter yourself, giving your body a nice little wiggle. Maybe one more nice long stretch, fingertips to toes, wiggling it all out. From here, let's roll to a side. Find your position and push yourself up gently. So next we will be coming to a hands and knees position. And you'll want to have probably your blocks nearby, maybe even a rolled blanket. We're going to be going into a variation of lizard lunge. So we'll start on hands and knees. And so if this is an uncomfortable position on your hands or wrists at all, you may want to incorporate the blocks, like I do. And if you find you have sensitive knees, taking a rolled up blanket and placing them under their knees. I also like to have a blanket over my yoga mat. So you might find various amounts of cushioning that can be proper for yourself. So do what you need to do and get creative. And again, we'll start with a hands and knees position. So we'll start with our left leg and we'll take our left foot forward and step that in front of where our hands are. And we'll lunge forward just gently. We're not going to go to our fullest extent. Again, in this whole series, we don't want to be pursuing our deepest flexibility. So with yin yoga, what you want to do is find that edge where you start to feel sensation. And what that's doing is connecting with the body mind, connecting with the nervous system, where our body starts to react with tension to protect us from injury. And we're going to breathe into that spot and allowing our body to release that tension and know that we're in a safe space. And you may find that as you hold a pose, you can go a little further and further with flexibility, and that's fine. But in general, we want to try to find that space and hold there, because every time we move, our body has to recalibrate and re-examine if it needs protecting, and so it might resist what we're doing. So we'll go just a little further. So what we'll do next is take our right hand, or block as it were, up to meet the same level where our foot is, extending out that far. And then we'll do a slight twist towards our left leg. We're going to allow our knee to fall open. So we're going to be balancing on the left razor edge of our left foot. You don't want to be torquing your ankle too much, but just allowing their balance to fall on the edge of your outer foot there. And you can extend that twist a bit using your hand to push out on the thigh just a little further if you need a little further stretch in that way. Try not to push on the knee joint because that can do some damage there. So we want to be pushing on the thigh. And then you can sink in a little bit further to find your combination of edge. The left side, you may be getting some inner thigh stretch, and here you'll be getting the hip flexor. If you don't want to press on your thigh, you're welcome to keep your hand balanced on your block or on the floor, as it were. So find your balance here. And again, soften your gaze. So you do want to be in a position where your breathing is not labored. You want to find a nice, even breath that you can relax into. This is a very intensive stretch, so we will not be holding this as long as we do some stretches, but it is important to find a certain time of hold here. About 2 more breaths here. And when you're ready, return your hands to the floor or your blocks, bringing them back to underneath your shoulders. And we're going to release out of that lunging position just a bit, readjust our foot so that all points of contact are on the floor. And we're going to be moving into more of a forward motion on the lunge this time. So maybe bring that foot inwards towards your blocks or towards your hands, just a little bit, adjusting to find that new lunging pattern. And then when you're ready, we'll move our hands out either on our mat or on our blocks to the level where our foot is, hugging that knee in towards your elbow into your body. And we'll place more of the weight on our left hand. Take the right hand, rainbow arc that up to a nice stretch, and look upwards towards your hand, towards the sky, and sink into that lunge a little bit, finding your razor's edge again. Just a couple of breaths here. And when you're ready, return back. I don't know about you, I think I needed that one today. I had a little bit of shaking going on, so again, we just try to find that edge and breathe into it. Some days are a little more shaky than others, but that gives us clues on where to spend more time. So we can walk back and retract our left leg, maybe take it into a brief child's pose. You're welcome to kind of rock back and forth, release those hips just a bit. And come back up when you're ready. And we'll prepare to do this on the right side. So bringing your right foot forward to the outside of your mat. And getting into the lunge pose just a bit. And let's allow that right knee to lean outward, balancing on the razor edge of your right foot. We'll bring the left hand to the upper outside of the mat. And again, you can keep your right hand on the floor or block, or you can use it to assist a little bit more of a stretch to find your edge on your thigh. And go ahead and soften your gaze. Close your eyes if you like. Find your breath. And just a couple more breaths here. Slowly, slowly bring yourself back to center, bringing the hands inward under your shoulders. And scooting that right foot inward just a bit. And then bringing your hands to meet the distance of your right foot. We'll start to lunge in a forward motion, finding that edge. And when you're ready, placing the weight on your right hand, having your right knee kind of hug into your elbow there. Rainbow arc up, stretching up towards the sky. And find a nice even breath here. Just a couple more breaths here. Feel that extension, feel your chest opening. And release back to center. Slowly coming out of the lunge. And coming back into a nice brief child's pose here. Again, feel free to rock back and forth. Help release those hips just a bit. Maybe even the low back feel. A lot can get tied up in the hips if there's any low back spinal issues, unevenness in the postures, any issues with sciatica, things like that. We always are just a little imbalanced, but the more that we know how to treat each side and open up each side, the more we can find a little closer to balance between the two. Take some nice, deep, even breaths in and out here, allowing yourself to sigh out any tension after that intensive stretch. And slowly roll yourself back up to seated position. So next we are going to be entering into a variation on saddle pose. So I would encourage, we'll be doing a leaning back, so I would encourage to at least have a small stack of blankets, even if in other more active yoga classes you can lay back all the way on the floor. Again, with yin, we want to make it a little bit more cushy, a little bit more relaxed feel. This is the recovery aspect of our practice versus extending as far as we can. So at least a couple of blankets to lean back on. Always nice to have a blanket. Or any combination of your bolsters. I myself like to make a nice little ramp for myself, which can be just nice and comforting, but also address any issues you may have with the spine. You may also like to have a block handy. I'll share that in just a minute. So we will start out with hero's pose. You'll have your feet kind of hugging your bolster. and balance just in front of it. Again, this is where you might like to have a block to be seated on, give you a little extension. That way, when you lean back, you have a nice support for your head still on the length of your bolster. And with this variation of saddle pose, we're going to do one leg at a time. Now, if you do need a little bit more extension to find your edge, I will show you how to go deeper into the pose. We will start out with the left foot forward. So this right leg, oh, again, if you do need to protect the knees, you could have a rolled up blanket behind your knees. That gives a little space in the joint there. Or some people even like to have a rolled up blanket under their ankle if that's a sensitive area for you. So we'll be essentially in hero's pose with this leg, making sure the ankle isn't falling outward. Want to keep everything compact into our bolster. Sitting up straight to start. We'll have the left knee bent. We want to have the toes and balls of the feet and heel all pressing right into the floor. And then we'll slowly recline ourselves back. Now, if sitting up was pretty intense for you, you're welcome to stay there as well. Again, we're finding our own edge, and that can vary by day or week, or with, any certain issues that we're dealing with our body. So you'll just want to keep nice relaxed arms, and you should feel maybe a stretch in your hip flexor again, or even all the way going down into your quads, into your thigh. Again, if you're not quite feeling this stretch intensely enough, you could clasp around your shin, pulling your knee into your chest, and that should give you a bit more of extension to find your edge. So do what you need to do to find your edge today. And when you're in position, again, soften that gaze or close your eyes. Whatever's comfortable, that you can find that breath again, using the square breathing if you need, or just finding a comfort within and finding that regular breath. You may find different degrees of release as you continue to hold in the pose. If you do find that your knee starts to lift up off of the ground, then you'll want to back off in some way. So maybe coming up out of the pose slowly, adding another bolster or blanket, maybe not leaning back so far. We want to be able to keep that knee and the thigh essentially pressing down towards the ground. Let's take about 5 more breaths here, or one more round of those square breathing. And then you can gently either roll yourself off of your bolsters towards the left side, or press in with both hands into the floor, raising with your chest first, head last to protect your neck. Coming back up to center, press in with the floor with your left foot, and bringing your right foot back out to a straightened position, maybe giving it a little wiggle. Getting that circulation to flow back into it again. And when you're ready, let's come all the way back into hero's pose so that we can align ourselves correctly. So this time we'll be making sure that, well, we want, at this point, both ankles hugged into the bolster, making sure they're not splaying out in any way, and knees pointing forward. We'll release the right leg, planting the foot all the way into the floor, all the toes, balls of the feet, heel pressing into the floor. And slowly roll it, if necessary, reclining yourself back onto your bolsters or seated up straight. Either way, if you're seated, trying to maintain that hips rooting into the ground with the rebounding energy going up a straight spine, coming out of the crown of your head to the sky. Once we're in this position, again, if you're not feeling enough sensation just yet, you could clasp at your shin, pulling your knee in towards your chest. And if you do find any low back kind of twinging, either slowly come out of the pose and try to re-enter, or you could lift up your hips, tuck your hips under just a moment, and sit back down, see if that helps. That can just help give a little bit more extension to that lumbar spine, keeping a nice natural curve, but also allowing the space between the vertebrae. And then once you've found your position, once again, finding your breath. Again, making sure, checking in with your body, that you're not holding tension anywhere. Also making sure that knee on the left side is still down on the ground, thigh pressing towards the ground. Left ankle hugged into your bolster or block, not splaying outward or twisting in any way. About 5 more breaths here or another round of square breathing. And slowly either gently roll yourself off towards the right or press both hands in, raising with the belly, then the chest, and then the head. And gently bring your left foot forward, extending that leg, allowing yourself a little wiggle there. And we'll be coming back to a hands and knees position. So for this, you may want to keep a bolster handy or maybe the rolled up blanket and actually maybe a block too. So everything within reach. So we are going to be working on our feet next, which are a great holder of tension, whether we're on our feet all day, performing a lot of physical tasks or walking, running on the go. Our feet can be very sensitive, but very tough. So we want to get some circulation back into those tissues, which can be a little bit more difficult than some areas of our body. And some people who tend to suffer from plantar fasciitis definitely experience a more severe form of the tension there. So the first one will be a toe squat. And what we would do is start coming on hands and knees, not very long on the wrists, so don't worry about that, but you may want to have a little blanket under the knees if that's sensitive. And then we'll take each of the toes, so all 10 toes, having them equally represented onto the mat, keeping a straight ankle, sitting back on our heels. Again, that can be a very intensive kind of pose, so if that is too much for you, because we will be holding this for a certain amount of time, you may want to take a block at any height that's comfortable for you. Again, hugging those ankles up against the block, finding that position that's just right, making sure all 10 toes are touching on the ground, and sit back there. Another option would be to have a bolster in front of you. So you could have your knees propped up on the bolster, and then slowly again placing the toes each on the ground, putting your balance, the weight down on the ball of your foot, and sitting back on the heels. Or you could do the bolster and the blocks. So find what works for you. Again, that weight is going mostly on the balls of the feet, so it can be very, very delicate. So find your balance. And when you do, we do have that gravity taking us downward towards the floor, but rebound some of that energy going upward through the spine, exiting out the crown of our head for a nice balancing, energetic release. So unlike the majority of yin poses where we do want to find our edge and stay there for the length of the pose, this is one where it's acceptable to come out if it does just get too intense after a while. And what you can do is, I like to just kind of gently tap out my feet a little bit on the tops of the feet. And then if you can, re-enter the pose again. And see if you can hold a little bit longer. Now, if you can't, that is just fine. Maybe take a child's pose until our next pose. But that gives you some clues that maybe something to work on continually in your practicing, and that's why we call it a practice. We get to keep working on things, and things always change. Maybe some weeks you've been on your feet more or had a certain injury or reaction with your foot that it's particularly tight this week. So, just finding out what you need and progressing and maybe finding that each time you can find a little bit more flexibility in this position. But if you can, have that gentle gaze or eyes closed. We'll just take a few more breaths here, about 5 more breaths if you need to count them out. And then slowly, slowly, slowly bring yourself forward, releasing those feet. Again, I like to give them little gentle taps on the top of the feet. And next we'll be stretching the top part of our foot. So we do like to have the knees together and seated back on the ankles, trying to keep the ankles straight. And then we'll be leaning back to give extension in the front of the ankle. And whether you can do that by your own strength and grab onto your knees, that is just fine depending on how much flexibility you have there. Or once again, employing the use of our bolster or a pillow, you could have your knees up, making sure that you do have some nice support with your hands. If that's too much on your wrists, again, you could use a block with your hands. Having the tops of your foot down, straight ankles, and leaning yourself back as far as you can manage. You are welcome to continue leaning forward if that's more comfortable to you. You control the amount of weight going on the fronts of the ankles. But try to keep a straight spine and only going as far as you can go today. Again, if you do need to come out of the pose and re-enter, you're welcome to, or if you can only do this for a short amount of time, just aim for longer next time or another time when you're feeling a little bit more open in that area. We always need to react with what our body needs in a day, each day. Some days our bodies may be more reactive and protective, holding on to tension to protect us. So we need to be even more gentle in how we approach stretching, or trying to expand those areas. If we're too aggressive, the body will just resist more, and that can create injury as well. But if we're gentle with how we handle ourselves, we can find more ease and more comfort in the opening and releasing of tension. And that's all we can ask for. So again, we won't hold this as long. Maybe just about 5 more breaths here. You can do it. And if not, please come out earlier. You're welcome to do that as well. And slowly lean forward, taking off the pressure from your ankles. And I like to give a nice extension to the leg, uncramp the knees, little ankle circles both ways. A little intuitive movement here again, whatever you find that you need to help unwind that. We'll be going into a nice cushy child's pose next. So having your bolster just hugged between your knees here is nice. You could also, if your hips don't tend to reach the earth when you're in child's pose, having a nice support there can be nice. And when you're ready, just a nice, gentle, just a brief child's pose here to start. Just take a nice, cushy lean forward, allowing your body to let go. We've had some pretty intensive poses the last couple, so let's take a nice rest, well-deserved. Once again, finding your breath. And you are welcome to stay here. We'll be transitioning into Shavasana. You could have this nice cushy wide-kneed child's pose if you like. If you prefer to remove your bolster and come to a more traditional child's pose with the forehead down on the floor, that might give you a little bit more extension along the entire length of the spine, that back body line. Or if your knees have been a little cramped up from our recent poses, you're welcome to take a traditional Shavasana laying on your back. Having a bolster under the knees can be very comfortable, maybe even a blanket over your body to just give yourself some nice comfort and fulfilling that restful release that we've had throughout the day. So find your comfort level and we'll sink into our Shavasana. And wherever you're at right now with your breathing, feel free to do a couple more rounds. And then slowly start wiggling your fingers and toes. Maybe give one last extension, long arms, long legs, nice long stretch of your body. And at your own pace, gently work yourself back up to a seated position. I am so grateful you were able to join me today. And I hope you got a lot out of this recovery class. I hope it helps you open up in areas that maybe don't get a lot of attention. And I hope I get to see you again. Thank you for being here. Namaste.